Yo, fantasy freaks, degenerate gamblers, friends, haters, whoever's watching, thanks for tuning in. My name's Glenn. This is going to be DFS Proptology. And today we're taking an early look at some NFL props heading into Week 10. Today's video, we're going to focus on some players with the best matchups heading into this weekend. We'll start with running backs. Here's a list of the 8 teams giving up the most yards per game on the ground so far this season. First up, Carolina, giving up the absolute most at 159 yards per game. Even worse over the last 3, 171 yards per game. They faced a team giving up the 4th most in the New York Giants. And the Giants, over the last 3 weeks, even worse than Carolina, 195 yards per game. This game takes place over in Germany early Sunday morning, and I think that's a good thing because this looks like one Scheiße of a matchup. But from a betting perspective, we have 2 running backs with really good matchups. Next up, we have Indianapolis Colts, and they're hosting the Buffalo Bills. So that puts James Cook in play. And Cook, I like to wait for him to come out with his receiving and rushing combined, but this is a great matchup. And we can also consider Ray Davis. Ray Davis has gone over his rushing line 3 weeks in a row. If it comes out around 20 yards or under, I think it's worth playing. Also, in this same game, I like Jonathan Taylor's receiving yards. The Bills have given up the most targets and the most receiving yards at over 58 yards per game to the running back position. Then we have the Dallas Cowboys giving up the 3rd most rushing yards per game, facing Saquon Barkley, who over the last 4 games has the most rushing yards per game. Simple math, but it's going to be a huge number. Then look at number 3 on this list. You'd expect to see Barkley. You'd expect to see Derrick Henry at the top. But number 3 is Najee Harris. And he's facing the Washington Commanders, who have given up the 5th most rushing yards per game. This line came out at 61.5. I've already played it on multiple cards. I really like this play. Then we have the New England Patriots. They're facing the Chicago Bears. We have some questions about the Chicago Bears offense. We don't know if the quarterback's going to be healthy. But that puts DeAndre Swift in play. I like to wait on Swift and get some of his receiving play also. So a combined rushing and receiving later this week is what I'm probably going to be looking for here. And in New Orleans, you have Bijan Robinson. Robinson's really been hitting his stride. He's another guy you can play as rushing. You can play as rushing and receiving. You can maybe go for his fantasy prop when that comes out later. Another great matchup against the Saints. Here's a look at team defense versus passing yards. The Baltimore Ravens right at the top of the list, giving up far more than anyone else at 280 yards per game. Over the last 3, even worse, 291 yards per game. They're facing Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Short rest Thursday night. We do have a questionable T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow over the last 4 weeks hasn't exactly been Joe Burrow-like. Only 218 yards per game. This is a play I'll probably skip. Next on our list, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars giving up the 2nd most passing yards per game, facing the Minnesota Vikings, who are giving up the 5th most passing yards per game. I don't mind either quarterback in this matchup. You got to like Sam Darnold going up against Jacksonville. He's got Justin Jefferson to throw to. TJ Hawkinson just got back into his lineup. Jordan Addison looked great in the last game. And then the Minnesota Vikings, they've been giving up passing yards all year long, and you'd expect Jacksonville to be behind in this game, be forced to throw the ball. So Trevor Lawrence, let's giddy up. We also see the Detroit Lions on this list. They're facing the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud's been a little bit disappointing this year, but he is getting his big weapon, Nico Collins, back this week. That could be a huge boost in this good matchup. But my favorite play is probably Brock Purdy going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who have been getting crushed through the air recently, giving up 263 yards through the air over the last 3 games. And last night on Monday Night Football, we watched Patrick Mahomes almost put up 300 against them. The 49ers are getting Christian McCaffrey back. That's finally going to give them a pass-catching running back as a weapon. And Brock Purdy himself, he's been doing a lot more running. I don't mind waiting and playing the rushing and the passing and rushing combined on Purdy. Here we're looking at the 4 teams that are giving up the most yards to the wide receiver position. And there's a lot of good options here. We could go with Justin Jefferson against the Jaguars. We could go with Jamar Chase against the Ravens. Their lines are going to come out pretty high. I like Nico Collins coming back from injury, so I'm hoping he runs enough routes, but his number's at 71.5 against the Detroit Lions pass defense that's giving up over 200 yards per game to the wide receiver position. And then at tight end, I'm going to take George Kittle. He's facing Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay is giving up the 2nd most receiving yards to the tight end position. Okay, guys, that's going to be our video. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you got some useful information. Maybe leave me a like if you did. Good luck with all your bets this week. And remember, bet, pray, win.